awards that was received last year, Excellence in 4-H Volunteerism. And so that's what, this presentation was built based upon that award nomination. And so you might want more details, or like Abby said, have questions at the end, and you can certainly present those in the chat box. So we'll go ahead and get started, and I'll try not to talk too fast, but I don't think we're doing anything differently in Texas than you are when it comes to volunteers, as far as how we value volunteers and their contributions and the leadership that they provide to the 4-H programs offered to the youth in your state. And in Texas, we often say that volunteers are the heart and hands of extension programs, and I mean, I think that's so true, because we all know that they serve as leaders and mentors and role models for our youth. And so it's so important that they're equipped with knowledge and resources that they need to fulfill their role as a volunteer. And so it's critical that we provide them with educational experiences that are quality and relevant, and so that they can foster a positive environment for our youth. And so, I'm sure we all feel the same way about that. And so that's the basis and the reason why we focus on training and engaging volunteers and making sure that they're equipped to do their job. So I'm going to go back to kind of where we started with all of this, so that you have a general background of how we evolved to what we're doing today when it comes to training volunteers. And so in Texas, we quite a few years back, we started a virtual volunteer conference, and it was just your typical conference. If you think about any conference that you go to, it was 3 days, say a Friday through Saturday, and we had a keynote speaker, how you typically start off a conference, and then a bunch of content-focused workshops. And so that's what we did. Our first one was very successful, and we were very pleased with what we were doing as far as training our volunteers. We were able to offer a lot of different workshops for them that were focused on different projects, as well as more broad too, like managing a 4-H club or general leadership topics and things like that. So if you think about that typical structure of a conference, that's what it was, where everyone came together, and then for the keynotes, and then were able to participate in the concurrent sessions that they wanted to. And since Texas is so big, and we only had one annual conference, we hosted it in different locations around the state. And the way we're divided and organized in our state, we have districts and then regions, and so there could have been some professional development for our volunteers at more of a local or district or regional level as well that they could participate in. And so, but they could also participate in this statewide conference that we had. So, but we looked at really less than 200 participants each year at this face-to-face conference. And so as time went on, we started reaching less and less. It just seemed like it was harder for people to come, and we even offered registration scholarships, worked with our 4-H Foundation to be able to offer some scholarships to help pay for people to attend the workshop. But I think an overlying theme in our lives, no matter what we do or who it is that we're busy, 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 and people were finding it to be difficult to be there. And so in 2013, we decided to take it a little different approach. But before I get into those details, I think it's important to note that our evaluations were good too. I mean, they were pleased with the conference. They felt that they were better equipped to be a 4-H volunteer, and they used the information, that they acquired at the conference and shared that with others and resources with others. And some, hopefully you can all see this on your screen, but some even provided feedback on what they were doing as a result of participating in that face-to-face conference, and noted that their club was operating at a higher level, was more organized and improved. They were using the information to recruit new volunteers. I think because they better understood their role as a volunteer, they could recruit new volunteers. And then they were taking what they learned at that face-to-face conference and replicating it at the local level for those that couldn't come. So basically what we saw is some counties would send a representative or maybe 2 representatives to the conference, and then they would return and offer the workshops they attended at the local level. So they brought back those resources. And for some, they noted, these are their words, it created kind of a dream team of volunteers, kind of an upper level volunteer role for those that attended the conference and then were able to come back and share those results. So we were very pleased with that, and I mean, we were seeing that there was a positive impact from offering an annual virtual volunteer conference. But as I mentioned, just with our numbers going down, and they never really got above 200 anyway, and in such a large state, even though they had to travel distances, we really kind of expected more. And so we initiated a virtual conference and really tried to think differently about how we could reach more volunteers. And so that's when we made that switch. And our primary goal was really the same as it was with the face-to-face conference, and a high-quality educational experience that fosters growth and development for the volunteers, which would then in turn impact the positive learning experiences that youth could have because their volunteers were equipped and trained and ready to serve. But the other thing too that we really added to our primary goal for the virtual experience is that we were providing volunteers with training that was very easily accessible and free, and it was offered in their own environment, and so by virtual they could participate really from anywhere. They just needed that internet connection. And so we took that approach, and in planning it though, we really took the approach that it was like we were planning a regular conference, and so that's the switch that we made. And so in the past 3 years since we started this, it's really been 3.5 years, I guess, we've offered 8 different virtual conferences. We've switched from that annual conference that we did face-to-face and have been able to offer it several times throughout the year, and so we've been able to offer more. And when you do the number crunches and stuff like that, you're looking at a lot more online workshops that we've been able to offer, and those are conducted live online for our volunteers. I'll get a little bit more into the logistics as we go through, and we've reached a lot more people, over 1,400 contacts. And if you take the duplicates out, because we ask our volunteers to enter their name and email, kind of like when you get on any kind of virtual training, whatever platform you're using, if it's GoToMeeting or something your university offers, we're able to see, that one person participated in 5 or 10 different workshops. And so when we remove those duplicates, we're seeing that we're reaching a lot more people and a lot more different people through the virtual volunteer conference. And so we've been very pleased with the turnout of that and how that has worked. And so really the conference spans over a 2 to 3 day period. I think we started out with like 3 days, and sometimes we offer 2. It just really depends upon the time of year. And so how it has worked is that we've set kind of a general time frame of our virtual conference. So we have one in August, and that's really our biggest event because it's when the 4-H year is starting for us here in Texas. We run kind of on the academic year. And so that one is very heavy on our club management topics, anything that's coming up in those fall months or anything that applies to year-round, year-round in the 4-H year. That's our focus in August. Some of our projects are more active in the fall while we concentrate on other projects in the winter, the spring, or summer. And so that's what we offer in August. And that's where we see our largest participation because everybody's gearing up for the 4-H year and there's a lot of excitement and enthusiasm. And the great thing about it too is that our agents, our county extension agents is what we call them, our educators are able to participate as well. especially those that might be newer, or we're sharing new information for even our experienced agents. And so we're able to train everybody at once. And if there's one thing I've learned over the years when it comes to working with volunteers is that they want to be in the know, and having them get the information at the same time as our professionals, it's been a very big benefit for us, and so it's worked well. And so in August now, we offer our workshops throughout the day, just like you would a typical conference, okay? Like you're starting one day, you start with a keynote, you have concurrent workshops, and you end it off with some kind of closing. So then the other months that we have are November and April, kind of a fall and a spring one. And so since it's a little later in the fall, before the holidays, it can get a little tricky. But we focus on the topics that are offered that are really relevant from, you know, late fall to, or late in the year to spring, is when spring is starting. And then in April, we're able to offer workshops on topics that are relevant for that time of year and those coming summer months. And so we can really focus our workshop topics by offering it several times throughout the year. And what we've transitioned to is that we've offered workshops in the evening and during the day, and we have, you know, learned that a lot of our volunteers are more likely to participate during the day. And so you can see on the screen where it says August, we offer those workshops throughout the day. Those are not offered in the evening anymore. And I'll mention that again, but that's basically our structure. You look at, you know, it's just like you're planning any conference. We schedule a couple days, a few days on the calendar that this is when the conference is going to be, and then plan it out just like you would anything else. And so some of the key things that we've done and learned throughout this process is it's obviously so important to get volunteer input. And that might seem kind of like a no-brainer, but sometimes if we're doing something virtually, we're like, oh, we can just do this on our own, you know, we don't have to worry about it. But in the very beginning, it was really critical for us. So just like our face-to-face volunteer conference, how we had a planning team that was made up of 4-H specialists, county extension agents, and volunteers, when we started planning our virtual volunteer conference, it was just as critical for us to have that input. And so it was important for volunteers to say, this time of year we need to learn about this, or no, offering workshops between 5 and 8 p.m. is not going to work for us because those are our busiest times of the day when we're running kids from here to there and trying to get them fed and homework done and things like that. And so it was good to have that volunteer input, just like with anything else we do for volunteers. So some of the other things just to think about, which are pretty basic, but we had to be real purposeful in thinking about when we were looking at a virtual conference, is the platform. Everybody uses a different platform, and so you just have to really find out what works best. You know, we've had some systems within our extension system here in Texas that have worked better than others, and so we've typically used what the university offers, and so now we're on a WebEx system, and that has worked really well. And so what the important thing is what we've learned is just to find a system that works, that's easily accessible, and that now the system that we use, they can even join in, you know, from their iPad or even their iPhone and listen in. They may have some limited participation as far as talking or sharing things, but they can get the information they need. So identifying the platform is very important. And then facilitating the request for proposals. It's just like any other conference where you send out an announcement. This is how we do it. Send out an announcement, put together, it's been online, you know, a proposal system, and have people submit a proposal to present a workshop for this virtual experience. And so going into it, they know that it's not going to require them to travel, it's not going to require them to, you know, to do the whole face-to-face thing, but that it's going to be virtual. And so that can be a little tricky sometimes if people aren't quite sure how to do that virtually. If you think about a typical workshop that might be more hands-on, but so there's not as much hands-on, which I would say is a drawback. but they know that going into completing a proposal, submitting a proposal to present for the virtual workshop. And then, like I said, securing a keynote and keynote speakers. Usually one of ours is a big 4-H update from our program leader. And so Dr. Bullman always is on point to provide an update, and it's like what's coming up this year, throws a little leadership stuff in there. And that's a big hit for our volunteers. They're hearing it firsthand. They're hearing what's going on, what's coming down the pike, and so that's always been well received. And then so, if he doesn't kick us off, he'll close us out. Or, we've had like people from National 4-H Council do a webinar, as a keynote, and then him close us out, or vice versa, or just someone, inspirational or motivational too. So it just depends on what you're looking for. And then we just develop the schedule and plan the evaluation, which is obviously online. And one of the things we've done even is giveaways and participation items. Even though we're virtual for the conference, we, in our evaluation online, what we do is put together a PowerPoint slide, kind of like for this webinar today. I was sent a PowerPoint slides to use for it. And so we do that for our presenters. If they want to use that, they can. And then we provide our presenters with a link to an online evaluation. And so at the end of their workshop, they share that with their participants and ask them to go do an evaluation. And I'll admit we haven't done this in the past couple of times, but when we first started, we had some residual funds left over from our face-to-face volunteer conference. And so if they went and did the evaluation online for us and they were willing to leave their name, and sometimes it was their t-shirt size or something like that, we sent them something. It may have been a t-shirt that we had made for our volunteers. It may have been a new little flash drive, or just a little kind of token giveaway for them to get in the mail for participating in the virtual conference. And so that was a big hit. We got a lot of great feedback on that, like, wow, didn't know I was going to get something. I didn't even have to go anywhere to get something. So those are some of the things we've done. And so what we've seen from our virtual conference are some really great outcomes. And so I've shared some of those here with you just so you can see them. Some are just that they feel like they have more knowledge and the ability to be a better 4-H volunteer. They plan to share what they learned and use what they learned, and they're more aware of some of the opportunities. Because let's face it, if I want to learn about some, let's just say shooting sports program, and it's a weekend-long training, and then what if I go and I spent my whole weekend and I just really don't like it? But I can get on this, 1-hour session online and learn a little bit about it and decide if I want to pursue it further. We found that that's a lot more appealing, and this virtual experience has been a great way for us to share those opportunities with volunteers that they may have not otherwise known about. So that's been a great outcome for us. And then just this is just a little bit of information about their overall satisfaction with the virtual conferences. This is kind of a summary of it. And so they're rating the presenter and the information and how they feel about it. Was it helpful, and what was the overall quality of the presentation, and did it meet their expectations? And so far over the past 3.5 years, we've gotten pretty high marks on that. And so in addition to reaching more people, we're seeing that what we're doing is very relevant, and it's helping our volunteers feel equipped and trained and ready to lead the 4-H program within their communities. And I wanted to just share some of the open-ended comments because that's always my favorite. I'm a numbers girl too, and so we can crunch numbers all day. But this is where, this is to me kind of the meat and potatoes of it all. And so the volunteers told us that they have told us over the past years, these are just some that I picked out, that they love the virtual conference. If you think about it, when you go to a face-to-face conference, you are able to pick sessions that are relevant to your interest. But in this case, they're able to do that without having to travel out of town for, say, a whole weekend, or travel clear across the state, or even fly across the state to participate, depending upon where they were located. And so they also told us that it's been an excellent way to distribute information out to them. And this was one of our very first comments, that this should just be a standard practice, that we should continue to offer virtual trainings. And that it was a good way to get information out to volunteers. It saved a lot of time and money, not having to travel. And then another one said that they love the conferences. It enables them to participate at a time that's convenient for them. And they, again, don't have to travel. And then that everyone they listen to, they learn something new or learn a better way to handle different situations. So it's been very positive feedback on offering the conference virtually compared to when we did it face-to-face. And so some of the benefits that we've seen from this really are more volunteers involved. We've seen greater participation by our volunteers through the virtual conferences. And the disclaimer is that doesn't mean they're participating in every session, because just like any conference, say if you have 5 workshops to choose from, we kind of do that, but we usually keep it to like 2 or 3 workshops are going on at one time online, and they can pick which one they want to go to during that time. But then that may be the only one that they participate in, and that's perfectly fine. They've gotten the information and the resources that they need. But we've also seen that more employees are involved too. So coming up this, not next month, but the 1st of September, we're offering another one. We're calling it the 4-H Summit, and it's open to our employees and our volunteers. By offering the conference virtually, we're seeing a lot more employee participation too, compared to when we offered it face-to-face. We had some of our county extension agents there and our 4-H specialists there, but we're seeing a lot more participation from them when we're offering these conferences and workshops virtually. So that's a win-win to me, that volunteers and employees are hearing and getting all the same information, and we're seeing that more of them are participating. The other great benefit is the flexibility and convenience of it all. When we started out, we were offering, like I said, daytime and evening trainings. And so people that can get to a computer or participate during the day, that's great. And then if you can't, there's evening opportunities as well. And so what we're doing is offering each session twice. One time we would offer it during the day, and then maybe we would offer it again that night, or offered it at night the next day. And we were offering those like 8, 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. Because what our volunteers told us, like I said earlier, is that 5 to 8 o'clock time, and it's not good. They don't have time to sit and listen to a training. So we were doing it kind of around the lunch hour, say from that like 11 to 1, and then, after like the 8 to 10 p.m. And the one great thing about it too is the last minute participation that can happen. It's like, oh, I forgot about that, and instead of traveling to get there and making sure I have a hotel room and all that good stuff, I can decide, oh, that webinar starts in 20 minutes, so I can go ahead and get on and participate. And so the other thing that we've done, and we've tried to be really consistent about, is recording each of those online sessions. Just like, our organization records these professional development webinars, we record them and then post them on our website afterwards, which is even more convenient for those people that can't be on that day and time, or those 2 different times that workshop's being offered. If they still wanted to get the information, they can, because those get posted on our 4-H website afterwards, that they can access that and listen. And then obviously get the speaker information and contact them if they have questions. And then one of the great benefits of it all is that it's been free. We went from a $30,000 budget by hosting a face-to-face conference once a year to pretty much a 0 budget. Unless we are offering some kind of giveaway, then we would need some money for that. But our platform is there for us. Everything is online. Besides some employee time that it takes, but that's our job, so that's not costing us anything. It's part of our job responsibilities to train and develop volunteers. So we're operating pretty much on a 0 budget to get it done, and it's not requiring travel for anybody. And so it's definitely been a win-win. And then, like I mentioned, another great benefit is that by offering the schedule the way we do, when the 4-H year starts in the fall and in the spring, it really allows us to put together a schedule that fits the current topics of interest in the 4-H program. Just by knowing kind of how our calendar falls in our state, what we need to focus on at that time of year. And so that has been a great benefit for us too. Because I may not want to learn about the Foods and Nutrition Project in August if we're not doing it until the spring and summer. So let me offer that one in April, or vice versa, however that works. So that has been a great benefit of offering the volunteer training virtually. And a little bit just about what we've learned overall is that, number one, the change is worth it. It's definitely worth it. It was a big change, you know. Sometimes we make change kicking and screaming. I'm sure none of you have done that or ever wanted to put your heels in the sand and say, no, I don't want to change anything. I know I've done that. I was like, are people really going to buy into this? You know, let's just try to make the face-to-face conference even better and, you know, try to get people to come. But the change was definitely worth it, going to the virtual training and offering the conference in that format. The other thing that we learned is that our volunteers are much more likely to participate during the daytime sessions than they are the evening sessions. And so what we've evolved, even just in our 3 years, from conducting sessions and trainings in the evening and during the day, we've evolved to just during the daytime. And there's a lot of assumptions that can be made about that, like people are working and people are, you know, busy and, you know, they can't participate from work. And we have found that that's really not the case, to be very honest, because our evening numbers were always lower than our daytime numbers, and then it evolved to our evening numbers were dwindling really fast, and so our daytime numbers were, you know, staying the same if not growing. And what we've found is that it doesn't matter where people are. As you all well know, we're all pretty connected to technology daily. I mean, you know, we don't leave our homes without our phone, and if they can participate from anywhere, then the daytime was the best. And even if they're working, well, during my lunch hour, I'm just going to sit at my computer and participate in this 4-H training. And so that's what we have seen our volunteers doing. And so it's been great. And so our employees that are teaching the sessions, they're no longer having to offer those at night as well. And so we start typically about 11 o'clock and end in the afternoon, and that might be over several days. Now our big one coming up at the beginning of the 4-H year is usually more day long, like half a day in the afternoon and then a full day and then a half a day that's on the third day, that next morning. And so there's 30-minute and 1-hour workshops, and so the schedule gets put together and gets announced, and then they know that those sessions are offered. And we have a lot more employees participate in that one because it's at the beginning of the 4-H year. I'd say our numbers are pretty much equal among our employees and volunteers, but we've transitioned just to daytime sessions. And then the other lesson we learned too is that volunteers want to teach too. And you know, typically when we see that, it's usually in a partnership with our volunteers and our county extension agents. You know, they might have a close working relationship, you know, where they partner on something, and so they're going to teach about something that they're doing great in the Clothing and Textiles Project, and they want to share that with everybody. Or they might be doing a workshop on the great service projects and how you can implement, you know, more service learning projects within your club, and so that's what they're partnering to do. And so it's been great to see some of those volunteers, and really how that has happened is county extension agents have worked hand in hand with those volunteers, you know, to submit the proposal and do that. Or those like our theater arts, it's really communication and expressive arts, everybody calls it something different, But for that project, you know, when we've made some changes to that project and what we call Share the Fun in Texas, volunteers that were a part of making some of those changes, well, they took the lead and taught those workshops during one of our more recent virtual trainings. And so it's volunteers, some of the volunteers that are in leadership roles or working hand in hand with the county extension agent on a project, and they're there helping be the decision makers and giving their input, and so they're teaching as well. So that's been great. The other lesson learned that's not on the screen is just that I really think over time we've learned, or maybe just realized more recently, that this can really serve as a model for volunteer input and focus groups. That, you know, during the conference, maybe a face-to-face conference, I don't know if any of you take the time to, you know, have some roundtable discussions or anything like that, you know, get input from volunteers. And there's nothing saying that this virtual volunteer training can't do that as well. And so I think that we've learned that this virtual experience works as a great way to engage volunteers in getting their input and maybe facilitating some focus group discussions as well. And so, gosh, I know that's a lot of information, and I've talked through it a little, probably faster than I should have, but I'll take a break here and see if people have questions. And Abby, I don't know if you want me to go through the chat or if you want me to, or if you're going to do that.
Yes, I don't see any questions, and I'm going to unmute everyone's microphone. So if you have a question and you have microphone capabilities, you're welcome to verbally ask the question, or if you have a question you'd like to type in the chat box, I can read that out loud as well.
Okay, I do have a couple that were sent just directly to me, I'm seeing now. So one of the questions is, do you offer a lot of the same topics each year, or are they very different from year to year? I would say they're very similar from year to year. So like I said, the beginning of the 4-H year, when we have our big virtual training, it's very focused on like club management topics. It might be some information about chartering or financial management or youth protection, but then also focusing on those projects that tend to, most of our clubs kind of in counties start their food and nutrition project in the fall. That's just one example. And so that's usually always highlighted in our August, September training. And then also any new resources that are being developed for the new 4-H year, that's always highlighted. And so we'll have a lot of those at our upcoming virtual training, because we're coming out with a lot of new project resources. And so we'll definitely highlight those. So that one's more to get the year kicked off. And then in the fall and spring trainings, like I said, it varies on projects. Sometimes those are the same and sometimes they're different. Like if we just created something new, a new resource, a new contest, or we've revamped some things, you know, some things are changing, we'll be sure to give an update, but then also provide training on that topic. So some of them, I would say the majority of them are kind of somewhat of the same topic, even though we don't approach it the exact same way every year. But then there's some different ones each year too. So I hope that answers your question. So what topics are volunteers teaching, I think, is one question in my text chat box. And I think I answered that when I said that volunteers are really working together with a county extension agent, or maybe they were a part of a team that gave volunteer input on making some changes or developing some new resources. And so they are working on those, you know, like I said, whether it's clothing, whether it's this is what we've done to in our Club for Service Learning, or how we've facilitated our food and nutrition project. So it's a variety of topics. And let me see, how long are the sessions is one question that's come through. And it varies. Usually we give the option for a 30-minute or a 1-hour session. And so 30 minutes is pretty short, but sometimes virtually, if we're kind of restricted to some of the hands-on teaching, and so you don't need it to be as long. So we build our agenda based upon with 30-minute sessions and with typically 1-hour sessions. Another question is, do any of the counties host get-togethers for volunteers, or does everyone just connect on their own? I have known some counties in our state to host a get-together, but I would say the majority are connecting on their own. They're doing that on their own. But I have heard from specific individuals, maybe just a handful, that do get together. Some of our counties are very rural, even though we have very large urban areas in Texas, and so the internet connectivity may not be the greatest, and so they, invite everyone to get together for a certain training. And maybe it's like, for example, the club managers, come together. The other option too that I have seen and I've heard a few success stories about from individuals is they may not watch it live, but since we record all of our sessions, then they'll pull that training up and watch it virtually. Maybe if they're, I'm using club manager as an example again, they're at a club manager training and they show a training to the volunteers and then have other things going on as well. But let's see, I think I answered the one about if we repeated topics in the fall and spring. Usually they're very different from fall to spring, but then the next year some of the topics might be the same. Have you hit a maximum number of people who can use this technology simultaneously? We haven't. Usually I partner with our IT department and make sure that everything is good to go and that we don't have a maximum. We have a separate link for every workshop that they go to, and so we haven't had any problems with that. But it's definitely good to get the support of your IT unit so that they can assist. One of the other questions is, have you had some requests for hands-on sessions come out of any of the virtual trainings? Yes, we have. And I think if I'm reading your question right, Tori, it's more of, okay, this was great, now I want to learn more about it. Can you come to our county, or can we learn more about this? And that has happened for some, that it has sparked the interest of a volunteer or even a county extension agent. And they might say, send me more, send me the resources, or, can you come to our county and do a training? And that has happened. And then I think the last question I'm seeing is what kind of program we use to have a virtual conference. Do you like it? Do you do it live like this? We do it live, but then we also hit the record button, just like this GoToMeeting. You can record it and post it, and so we're able to do that as well. We record them and post them. Okay, one more that popped up. Do you offer a library of the recorded sessions, or do the recorded sessions get posted only for a short time period? We really post them for as long as they're relevant, if that makes sense. So if the resource if we're referring to resources and things that kind of become outdated, since I'm more FCS focused, I'll just use food nutrition as an example again, is that if we had something posted and it mentions My Pyramid, obviously we're going to pull that when My Plate came out. And so, or if we offer the session again in a year and a half, we're going to use the most recent one to replace the old one. So we'll keep it posted until it's no longer relevant. Or it's just a little too old, So we try to go through those at least once a year to see what's posted and then pull the ones that are no longer relevant. And then, like I said, sometimes we might just replace them. And then there's a question on interaction in the live sessions. There is probably not nearly as much interaction as we would want, as like that we would get in a face-to-face training. But once again, I think the benefit far outweighs the cost of that, just for the fact that we're reaching more volunteers and we're having great impact. And so I'll have to think if I can find any examples of those that maybe have used a lot of interaction. But I know we always try to get interaction just with like how you can raise your hand, how on the screen to ask a question, or the text chat. And so there's different ways that we try to make sure that they stay interactive throughout the session, so you're not going like, is anybody there? Is anybody listening? Can everybody hear me? And the max number of people we've had in a given session, golly, especially when our program leader is giving like an update or something, we've probably had close to 100 in a session, and it's gone just fine. But all the other sessions can range from 10 to 30 to 40, really. Okay, Abby, I think that's all the questions, unless you see that I missed one.
I was looking through there, and I think we've hit all the questions. Oh, one just popped up. Can anyone
Okay.
your recorded sessions, or are they password protected?
Good question. We've done both. And the best way to do it is no password, to be very honest. You have to make it easy. You know, I've learned even in my roles as I serve as a volunteer, whether it's at church or Little League or my children's school, that if you're not going to make it easy for me, then I'm not going to do it. So we used to have a password, and now we can set up our sessions where we don't require a password, and it was so much easier and so much better. If you do have a system that's going to require some kind of password, I mean, they don't even have to pre-sign up and pre-register for these. But if you're going to have a password, make it like the same password for every session. I think in the beginning when we had a password, it was like TX4H, you know, for Texas 4H. And it was real big, so it wasn't a separate password for each workshop, because that would just get way too confusing.
Very good. Are there any other questions before we wrap up for this afternoon? Well, again, thanks to everyone for joining us, and thanks to Courtney for presenting. This was some great information. Just to let everyone know, this session has been recorded, and it will be posted on our NAE 4HA Professional Development site, and it will hopefully be posted by tomorrow afternoon, and the slides will be up there as well. So if anyone wants to reference the session again or any of the slides that Courtney shared with us today. But thanks, guys. I appreciate you guys being with us.
Thank you.